Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another week of distance learning. I'm really happy that you're back with me. This week, we're going to talk about how to write professional style emails. The state of Texas does say that as juniors, you are responsible for doing this. They say that you have to be able to compose correspondence in a professional or friendly structure. And so that's what we're going to work on this week. And by Friday, you're going to be able to compose emails to teachers, future bosses, colleges, anyone in a professional way in a manner that's not going to upset them or possibly offend them in any way. So that's our goals for this week. Today, hopefully you've already taken the pre-test that I gave you, and I told you to take that first, so hopefully you did. That's going to give us a baseline and show us how you currently write your emails. And then you're going to watch a video on emailing, which is this one. And after this video is over, you're going to answer some questions about it. Tomorrow, you're going to watch another video that I'm going to make on email etiquette, and that's focusing primarily on the professional style email. Today, we're going to cover both. And then you're going to answer some questions about that video. Tomorrow's video is going to be a little longer, but the questions are going to be a little fewer. And then you're going to compare two emails in terms of their professionalism and tell me why one is more professional than the other. On Wednesday, you're going to complete a Google form where you are going to evaluate an email that I give to you in terms of its professionalism. You're going to look at very specific items in that email to see what is professional and what is not about it and how it can be improved. And then you're going to do a little practice on your own. On Thursday, you're going to complete another Google form. You can see that Google forms are my favorite, where you will fix some poorly written emails. I'm going to give you 3 emails, and then you are going to see what's wrong with them, and then you're going to rewrite them. And then you're going to practice a little bit on your own. And then Friday is when you're going to get your assessment. And this assessment grade will be on your progress report. So keep that in mind. And you're going to assess your knowledge about writing professional emails, so that you're going to know how to write appropriately for your teachers and other people. So this week is really, really important. So please focus on it. Please take your time, and we can all grow a little bit at the end. Okay, let me get out of here and move to the next item of business. Okay, so we're going to talk about emailing. How in the world do we craft a formal email? What does a formal email look like? What does it sound like? What is different about it? Okay, so does this email sound like it's appropriate for a teacher? Okay, so it says from I don't seem to have any manners at yahoo.com. And it's to T. Claypack at OGISD. Subject, homework grade, with the exclamation mark. Mrs. Claypack, why didn't you put in my late work yet? I turned it in during 7th period, and my dad is on my case. I'm going to be grounded all weekend if you don't hurry up. Did you lose it or what? Keith. Is that acceptable or not? What's wrong with it? What would you do as a teacher if you received an email like that from one of your students? Would you want to help them right away? Or would you kind of put it off a little while? Let them stew a little bit? I don't know. I'm not saying that I would do that. I'm just saying you're less inclined to help them because they're being rude. All right, so why is learning email etiquette important? Most people communicate using their email. 91% of people check their email regularly. You will need to email your teachers at some point. You probably have already emailed them this year, right? Because that's the only way to communicate with them right now. So in high school, you will get a lot farther if it's you asking the teacher rather than a member of your family, right? So your teacher is going to be more apt to help you if it's you asking as opposed to your parent or guardian. In college, it's going to have to be you communicating with your professors. They're not going to listen to parents or guardians because by that point, you're an adult. So you're the one that's going to have to communicate with them. And so it has to be appropriate and it has to be effective. This applies to dual credit classes as well. In dual credit classes, you're treated like a college student. And as such, you are going to be the one talking to me or whoever your professor is. In work, a lot of jobs can now be applied for via email. A lot of them, most of them, I would say. You're going to need to be able to email a cover letter to those potential employers. And if your cover letter is written in an informal manner, they're not going to read it, they're not going to call you, and they're not going to try and hire you. So it's really important that we learn how to write our emails appropriately. A bad email is the equivalent to a bad first impression, right? They're not going to see you. You don't see people over the email, but they're reading it, and that's the first time they're meeting you. And so if it's bad and it's written poorly, well, they're going to think that's you, right? So keep in mind that when someone is reading a piece of communication, like email or a text message or a post on social media, they can't hear your voice and they can't see your face. So if you're showing sarcasm or humor, it might not come across that way. And so it's really kind of dangerous to put sarcasm or humor in an email or another text form of communication like that. Okay, so keep that in mind. I know a lot of us like to be sarcastic, but there's a time and place for that. And the place is not in an email to one of your teachers. Okay, so these are the parts of a professional email. And we're going to be talking about these all week. So make sure that you understand the terminology here. So when composing a formal email, it helps to show the essential elements of this type of writing. So you're going to use the labeled example below as a guide or reference. And I am going to post this as a material in your Google Classroom. So you'll be able to look back on it while you're doing your schoolwork this week. So when you're writing an email, the first thing is going to be the recipient. When you write an email, you have to write who it's going to. So in this case, it's going to randy.shore@school123.com. And then here is CC. CC stands for carbon copy. It's not the main recipient, but you want to keep them informed about the conversation. And so my mom and dad at gmail.com is going to get an exact replica of this email. They're going to see everything that the Randy Shore person saw. BCC stands for blind carbon copy, a sneak copy. So your carbon copy, Randy Shore can see that my mom and dad received that copy. But when you do a blind carbon copy, Randy Shore will not know who else it was sent to. Okay, they're not going to have any one idea. So someone you want to receive the email, but you don't want the recipients to know they are included. It's a sneaky way of giving people the information without letting the original person know about it. The sender is lynnjones@gmail.com. Subject line, and the subject line is extremely important. First, our study guide question. It tells you exactly what your question's about, what is the whole thing about, what's the subject of the email. And in this case, because this is going to an instructor, they tell you what class period they're in so that they know ahead of time. And so then we have a salutation. The salutation is the same thing as the greeting. So, dear Mr. Shore, thank you so much for helping us to prepare for the test today during class. The review session was so helpful. I'm sorry to bother you at home, but I'm a little worried. I just got home from basketball practice and I'm working on the study guide. I know the test isn't until next week, but I have a few questions about the review questions. Specifically, numbers 3, 18, and 27 are troubling me. Will we have time to discuss my questions during class this week? If not, can I schedule a time before or after school to come speak with you? Thank you for helping me learn. That's the body of the message. Those 3 paragraphs make up the body, the message, right? And then you have the closing. The closing is the word respectfully. It's just the word in closing. And then you have the name, Dylan. So together, the closing and the name make up what is called the signature block. So later on in the week, you're going to be getting questions about their signature block, and that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the closing plus the person's name. Okay? All right, so let's continue. So best practices for successful emails. I told you the subject line is extremely important. What you put in your subject line can mean the difference between the reader opening your email or postponing it or deleting it altogether without opening it. Okay? So what you put in that subject line makes all the difference. Your subject line should entice the reader to open your email. They should want to open it. The subject line should let the receiver know what to expect in the email. Okay, because it is the subject of the whole email. That's why it's called the subject line, because you're telling them in that line what the whole email is talking about. And so don't write things like hi or important or you don't want to miss this. If you write you don't want to miss this in a subject line, whoever's reading it is going to think it's spam and they're not going to open it. You need to make sure that you use an appropriate salutation. Here are some examples of salutations, and we're not talking about professional emails right here. We're talking about any emails or letters. Hi, Mary, dear Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, and you only use one of them, right? Hello, Pat, dear John, my dear family, dear sir or madam, to whom it may concern, dear all. All of those are perfectly acceptable salutations or greetings. Your opening sentences are also important because if it's rude and you just jump right into telling the teacher why you're mad at them, they're probably not going to finish reading your email. So your opening sentences, they kind of set the mood for the whole paper. So thanks very much for your email. This is to say thanks for your last email. Concerning our phone call yesterday, blah, blah, blah. In response to your email, blah, blah, blah. I'm just writing to blah, blah, blah. I am writing to you in reference to your letter dated with regard to our phone call. So the opening sentence is just starting you out, right? And we will talk about how we should open our sentences tomorrow. Okay, so next is your closing sentence. You can write something like, I look forward to hearing from you, or I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I hope to hear from you soon. Feel free to drop a line to me. Hope all is well with you. Have a nice or a great or a lovely or wonderful day or a week or time. Obviously, you're picking one of these words, right? You're not using all of them together. But the point is you're closing the whole letter up, right? And keep in mind, between your opening sentence and your closing sentence, there's a big body in between, right? We have a bunch of sentences that tell you what the whole paper is. All right, so, and you also need to use your appropriate closing. Yours sincerely, kind regards, best wishes, all the best, see you soon, take care, cheers, yours truly, lots of love. Some of these are appropriate for formal emails and some of them are not. I mean, obviously, if you're writing to your teacher, you're not going to write lots of love, right? You're also not going to write cheers, right? So some of these are appropriate for different settings, different formats of emails. So here are your best practices for successful emails in terms of the message. You need to have a clear, concise message. We use the acronym KISS. Keep it short and simple. An email should not be a 100-page manuscript. You need to keep your sentences short and to the point. Email is a very quick way to get your message across. And in order for it to be quick, your emails need to be short. This is actually something that I really struggle with. If you've ever gotten an email from me, you know that they're not generally short, okay? But you should try to do that. So here are some examples. Subject, revisions for sales report. Hi, Jackie. Thanks for sending that report last week. I read it yesterday, and I feel that Chapter 2 needs more specific information about our sales figures. I also felt that the tone could be more formal. Also, I wanted to let you know that I've scheduled a meeting with the PR department for this Friday regarding the new ad campaign. It's 11 a.m. and we'll be in the small conference room. Please let me know if you can make that time. Thanks, Monica. That's one example of the email. Was that really short and concise? Was all of that about the revisions for sales report? No, right? She added information about a meeting that had nothing to do with the sales report. That's a no-no. Make sure that if you have something else to talk about in your email, you do it in a separate email. So here's what we improved it to. Subject, revisions for sales report. Hi, Jackie. Thanks for sending that report last week. I read it yesterday and I feel that chapter 2 needs more specific information about sales figures. And then she moves to another paragraph to make it easier to read. I also felt that the tone could be more formal. Could you amend it with these comments in mind? Thanks for your hard work on this, Monica. And then Monica's going to write another email about the PR department meeting. Do you see how she broke it up to make it easier to read? That's important in an email. That's part of making it clear. So the first paragraph was about chapter 2, and the second paragraph was about the formality of the report. And so she broke those two subjects up. Here are some tips for some successful emails. Try to avoid words that don't really add meaning. They're like fluff words, such as just. I'm just writing to you. Or probably. I can probably make it to the meeting. Try. Think. Whatever. Maybe. Sorry. Always address the person you are writing to. Do not confuse an email with a text message. There should be no numeral 2 and then a letter C and then a letter U. It's not a text message, it's an email, especially if you're writing to somebody in a professional capacity, like your teachers. Do not use slang. You guys know, because most of you have had me before, that slang in your writings is one of my biggest pet peeves. When you're writing an email to me, do not put slang in it. You need to be polite. You need to spell check and proofread your emails. And do not write your email in all caps. That's the equivalent of somebody yelling at you, so don't do that. You need to make sure you have good manners and a kind tone, right? Your emails are a direct reflection of your maturity and your professionalism. You need to avoid informal language. That means slang, jargon, inappropriate abbreviations, etc. Like if you're writing a text message. Make sure to offer an appropriate closing, such as regards, sincerely yours, all the best, etc. Make sure to keep an appropriate tone. When we meet face-to-face, we can use the other person's body language, vocal tone, and expressions to assess how they feel and how to interpret their words. But in an email, your choice of words, your sentence length, your punctuation, and your capitalization can all be easily misinterpreted because we don't have that body language to feed off of to gather a response, right? We don't hear it the same way that you're saying it necessarily. And so we have to be careful about what we're putting in our emails. Proofread. Remember that you are making an impression on your reader with your email. You need to double check that your email is void of errors. And then use the spell and grammar check available through the email service. You can also get Grammarly for free, and you can install that as an extension on your Google Chrome, and it will check your emails and tell you whether or not they sound appropriate. Now, how does it sound? From my manners have gotten better at yahoo.com, which we're going to learn is not an appropriate email address. But anyway, to tclaypack at OGISD. The subject, question about homework grade. Better, right? Mrs. Claypack, good afternoon. I'm sorry to bother you, but I have a question regarding the late homework that I turned in during 7th period. It wasn't really a question. But anyway, my dad is concerned that I might not have completed it and turned it in. I was wondering if you know when you might have the opportunity to grade the assignment and input it into the gradebook. Again, I apologize for interrupting your evening. Thank you for taking the time to read and answer this email at your convenience. Thank you, Keith. How much better and more appropriate does that email sound versus the one that Keith wrote previously? we need to make sure that when we email our instructors, that it sounds appropriate, that it sounds formal, that it sounds like we care about them in their answer. We're not judging them, we're not being rude to them, we're not being disrespectful, right? And so your word choice is going to matter a great deal in your emails. So we need to be careful about this. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to answer the questions about this video. And we will talk more about emails tomorrow. Y'all have a good rest of your day.